Well, thank you very much. Good to be here this morning. I'm 85 in a few weeks' time, and for the past 60, can you hear without the mic? Right.
Yes.
Can you hear without the mic at the back?
Yes.
Okay, I'll keep my voice off. And for the past 60 years, have been involved with terrorist groups and hostages in pretty well every part of the world. I'm still involved today. Just for the first couple of minutes, just let me make one comment about the present situation facing us in the Middle East, which is extremely grave and very sad. I think anyone who's followed that situation will have seen what has happened recently coming. I have worked in Israel with those families who suffered as a result of attacks by Hamas, and members of their family have been murdered. And I've sat with them and empathized with them. I've worked in the Palestinian territories. I was able to get on with him. I was able to negotiate with him in his tent. And again, hostages were released. To skip over the years, to come to Beirut, where I was captured. The families of John McCarthy, Brian Keenan, and many others came to Lambeth Palace and said, look, please, you've got a reputation in this field, can you please help us? We're not getting any information of any substance from the Foreign Office. We're not getting any news. We don't know where John or Brian are being kept or how they are. Can you help us? And initially, I said that I was reluctant to take up another case. I was extremely busy in other areas. We were arranging visits to China. We were arranging visits to Australia. I had to visit both these places on several occasions. And to try and take on another case was extremely difficult. They came a second time, and they came a third time. And on the third time, I agreed. With this in mind, that if you take up a case on behalf of a grieving family, and you'll say you'll try and do something for them, you stay with it until such time as your presence becomes a danger to the hostage themselves. And you do face yourself extreme difficulties, extreme dangers. My style of negotiating was to try and meet with captors face to face, not at a distance, alone, without protection, without guards, without arms. That means one went into that situation extremely vulnerable, knowing full well that if things go wrong, you could be killed or captured. And I always knew that was a real possibility of being captured, although nothing can really prepare you for that particular experience. I got out, strangely enough, I'll just tell you a quick story. I'm going to have to speed on because time will go, but a quick story of how I came to make contact with these mysterious figures who were out of the limelight. I made frequent news items in the press saying that I was willing to go to Beirut to meet with the captors. I went on the radio, the TV, the press, making all these comments. So many comments, in fact, that at one point I was accused of grandstanding, trying to make myself popular. But the real aim was to try and get a contact, which I couldn't get in any other ways. And strangely enough, it came in a very odd way. One day, Myron Belkide, who was the bureau chief of Associated Press in London, and his colleague, Terry Anderson, the bureau chief of Associated Press in Lebanon, had been captured and was disappeared, believed to be in captivity. Myron came into my office and he handed me a slip of paper. And on this slip of paper, there was the name, or the names of 4 men who were missing, 4 hostages. They happened to be all American. And beneath it was a message. It said, "We're the people you want to see, come and see us." As vague as that. The first thing you do, obviously, in a situation of that kind, is to check the signatures for authenticity. And they were authentic. It was years later I discovered how this message got to me. The captors had heard my message. They were willing to speak. They went into the cell where these 4 hostages were kept with this scrap of paper and the message written on it. They asked them to sign it. They then took the message, wrapped it round a stone, got into a car, threw it into the doorway of Associated Press in Beirut, who picked it up, transferred it to London, and it came to me. That was the tenuous contact, the first contact. And so acting on that, I got out there. Beirut was in absolute turmoil. There was fighting in the streets. It was extremely dangerous. There was only one plane going in, and that was Middle Eastern Airlines. They were the one airline that kept going. I went in mid-MEA and stayed in the apartment of Terry Anderson. Waiting. I'd been told to take with me a shortwave radio so that the captors would communicate with me on that radio. Nothing happened. The radio was affixed in the apartment by Associated Press, tuned into the right frequency, waited day and night by myself. And this is the hard part of all this work. One was alone, having to face the tension and difficulties of being alone in a hostile environment and having to make your own decisions on which very often your life depended. And I would never recommend that way of working. We had to work alone in those days. We didn't have other resources. But the same thing applies in good working in any situation. If you can work with a team and share with a team, it is so much more beneficial than just working as a lone operative, as some people still wish to do. I waited, and then one evening the telephone rang, and the voice on the other end said, words to the effect, "We're the people you want to see, come and see us." And they named a petrol station nearby. Well, there was no way in which I could just go on the basis of one phone call. But what you do in response to a call like that, again, another thing you have to be able to do in these negotiating situations, you have to be able to think on your feet and think quickly. And my response to this was, before I come and see you, will you phone me back with the name of a girlfriend of Terry Anderson's? Well, I knew that little obscure bit of information could only be obtained by someone who had contact with Anderson or contact with the kidnappers. It would be extremely difficult to get that name anywhere else. Half an hour later, the phone rang, and the name was Krista. That was the right name. So now we got to the next step, got in touch with the kidnappers. As when an anger to normal human emotion, you have to be able to do something about it. It's not purely a negative emotion. It can be used positively. But if we allow anger to get the better of us, it will do us more harm than those against whom it's held, of that there's no doubt. This way of controlling my anger and getting hold of myself was to refuse all food, a common thing that many civilian prisoners do in the first weeks of incarceration. It's a way of saying, you may have captured me, but you haven't captured me completely. I still have control of my mind. I did it for a week. After the week was over, they said, if you don't eat now, we shall make you. And by that time, I got control of anger. I was moved from that place eventually, always into sometimes a bombed out building, metal shutters in front of the window, so no natural light came in, chained by the hands and feet to the wall for 23 hours and 50 minutes a day, sleeping on the floor, no books or papers for about 3.5 years, no one to speak with. I used to say to the guards initially, does it not say in the Quran, you mustn't steal? I said, no, we mustn't steal. I said, how is it you steal me from my family, you steal my life? They said, well, better go ask the chief about that. A key turning as fear grips my stomach. I lie still on the floor, blindfolded, sheltering beneath thy thin blanket, seeking protection, seeking what scrap of security I may find. Sit! The command echoes round the cell like a shot from a pistol. Chains tug at my limbs as I struggle to obey. My wrists and feet are seized as locks are removed. Stand! I stumble to my feet. What is happening? Why at this hour do they come? Can this be released? Do I stand on the brink of freedom? My arms are gripped as we move out of the cell into the unknown. There are many in the room. I hear laughter, words uttered in a half whisper, words I cannot understand. Sit! I crouch and sit. Sleep! I lie on my back. The room falls silent. What you say? Now I understand. Another interrogation, another bout of questioning, another seeking for answers I cannot give. What you say? The voice is louder, insistent. Nothing, I reply, nothing. Something lands on my face, a pillow perhaps. I struggle to breathe as the pillow is held down. What you say? Someone holds my legs. Now my fear increases, the room falls silent. Suddenly a searing pain convulses my body. My feet are burning as blow after blow is struck with cable. What you say? What you say? I cry into the covering. Oh God, let this pain cease. What manner of person can so treat another human being to such indignity and pain? Stand! I cannot. Arms lift me to my feet and drag me back into chains, back into the night, back into a living death. All terrorist groups are not composed of all